We are at the end. We are at the last MSAHA basketball weekly show. The MSAHA playoffs wrapped up this past weekend. The champions, not so surprising, but the brackets had a few surprises. We will talk about those here today. We also will have outgoing senior Holly Ensign joining us after winning her second MSAHA title. And of course, as we have no choice, we have ridiculously early predictions for next season. We'll be with Charlie Cotton to talk about that. We got a great show for you tonight. The MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show begins right now. Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us once again. The last MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show of the 2023-24 season. Be sure to go and hit the subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Subscribe right now to the channel. We do have a guest coming on today. That will be Holly Ensign, of course, of the Laurel Lady Hawks. The Lady Hawks stormed through the tournament, but yes, and we will talk about that a little later. Please be sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Also, check out the website, tsjwnetwork.net. We have all the results from everything throughout the tournament. We've got the playoffs page on there, and you can see the brackets and how they all played out and all the scores and everything like that. That's on the TSJW Network website, tsjwnetwork.net. We also have a new article that I posted this week, and we just keep that going on the website there. Also, please be sure to follow us on Instagram at TSJW Network. So this past week, we had the MSAHA playoffs, and I just want to go ahead and bring Charlie Cotton on right now. Charlie Cotton, our TSJW Network contributor. And Charlie, again, thank you for joining us for sure. So this past weekend, we had a 14U boys tournament. We also had 18U girls and 18U boys tournaments happening this past weekend, starting with the 14U. The Muddy River Counselors coming away with the tournament championship, defeating the PCA Paladins on championship Saturday. It was a very competitive game. PCA was up by 7 points there in the fourth quarter, and then the Muddy River Counselors able to come back and win that ball game. I know you probably didn't see a whole lot of 14U action, but what were your takeaways?
I didn't see any 14U besides the championship. But PCA, they have good shooters on their team. PCA in all divisions, varsity, JV, and 14U, they're a very smart team, very well coached team. PCA, I've always noticed they make very good decisions.
That's for
and they
sure.
play well as a team. Muddy River, Luke Sanders really stepped it up. You can really tell that he was being a leader out there, really trying to lead the team. And Muddy River had a lot of height compared to PCA. PCA is a shorter 14U team, where Muddy River, they had a couple guys who were pretty tall, would have been tall even for varsity level in this league. Two tough teams, and Muddy River ended up coming out with the win.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. The Counselors able to win their third straight 14U championship. As Luke Sanders' last 14U year, as well as Isaac Viverka, another key guy on their team. One guy that was really tall on their team, Hilton Tompkins, he's their tallest player. He has another year of 14U left, as well as Noah Sanders does as well. But the rest of the guys, very young guys, like 11, 12-year-olds. And so the team was kind of put together like that. The PCA Paladins, just like you're saying, some real good players. They had Enoch Borelli on their team, as well as Brendan Howard. Those are two guys that play a lot in 16U as well, and so those guys really carried a lot of weight for them, but their younger guys were good too with the shooting. But the 14U bracket kind of turned out that way. PCA was kind of a bracket buster because they had not played any 14U games during the season conference-wise, so that's why they were put down at the number 6 seed, and just a tough out for Laurel. I mean, Laurel's the 3 seed. They played the whole season, earned them a 3 seed just to take on one of the toughest teams in the tournament and just get beat pretty good in that first round matchup. And then Jackson, another team that kind of expected to be in that championship Saturday to take on the Muddy River Counselors. Last year was Muddy River and Jackson. This year, Jackson gets knocked off by PCA, and PCA's in that championship with the Muddy River Counselors. So they kind of return the favor because last year Jackson knocked off PCA. So that's very interesting there. But Counselors complete the three-peat there. But now moving to the 18U girls bracket, Laurel, of course, winning it, and that's about the most obvious thing that you could have seen this whole tournament. The most expected thing was Laurel to win the girls bracket for sure. But the tournament was very interesting. PCA is in the championship, which was kind of expected because they were the number 2 seed, but everything that got to that point kind of got crazy. I mean, they played against Hattiesburg. Hattiesburg gave them a run for their money on Thursday. But then after that, then Hattiesburg dipped into the losers bracket and lost, and they got eliminated early on Friday. And then, I mean, it turned out that it was the Muddy River Counselors, the lowest seed in the whole conference, and been one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the conference for the last 3 years. They end up being the third place team, taking on PCA, which PCA was able to win that game by a good bit. So 18 girls bracket, very interesting. And I know you have a couple sisters there that play some girls basketball, so you're able to pay attention to this one a little bit closer. Just kind of give your perspective on this 18 girls bracket.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Laurel, we expected them to be we expected them to be in the championship and really expected them to win, the entire thing. There's a very dominant girls team. PCA was probably, everybody was expecting second-ish. And they did that. But again, it was very interesting because I know y'all had a buzzer beater, which I was there to see. Which was pretty crazy. That was some Kawhi Leonard stuff.
Pretty wild.
And
exactly all the way around the rim.
Yeah. And so that was crazy. And then, we did go down to, it was Meridian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really tight game, 23-20, very close.
Yeah. Meridian and us, our girls team has been pretty close. I think we had like a summer camp type thing together at one point in time. So there's a lot of good friends there, but it's really tight games most of the time. Yeah. And it was a tight game this time, and Meridian was able to come out with the win. Just played really well as a team and capitalized on our weaknesses, and it's just kind of how it went. But yeah, I mean, Laurel was in the championship, PCA second, but like you said, it's just a bunch of interesting games that really make a tournament, that really fun atmosphere. You never know what's going to happen. You might not win, but it's always a good time.
And it's a couple things that happened in the tournament that is interesting as well. And just one thing, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. And that's what Meridian's coach Scott Sherman would say. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. That's kind of what came back to bite Meridian against Muddy River there, is they were almost about to beat him 3 times. Muddy River was able to get that win. Hattiesburg, same thing with Meridian. Hattiesburg had beaten Meridian both times in the regular season. And so then they play each other, and that's a tough one as well. Hattiesburg beat the Muddy River Counselors early on Thursday, but then they end up finishing lower than the Counselors as well. So, and that's just interesting about double elimination, that you have to remember is that sometimes how the bracket gets set up, sometimes it may be more advantageous to win earlier or more advantageous to win late. You just never know kind of what happens with that double elimination tournament. Definitely makes it interesting for sure. Also, Hattiesburg PCA game, I mean, that was a game that we saw on Thursday that was very interesting because PCA was down for most of the game. Hattiesburg was up on them. And then Salome Borelli of PCA fouls out early in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And this is while Hattiesburg was leading. And then Lane Cameron of PCA, I mean, she just really just started dominating the game and just rattled off of like about 10 points there for the rest of the game. And I mean, and then PCA won the game by about 8 or 10, which was just crazy performance. Also, Hattiesburg kind of froze up, missed some shots there in that last quarter, and that's just a crazy game because as soon as Borelli went out, everybody in the gym thought that Hattiesburg had that one. But the rest of those girls on that PCA team really stepped up there. So that 18 girls bracket, very interesting as well. It kind of was worth the tournament for sure. Laurel won it pretty easily. I think they won all their games by at least 35 points, and so it's cruising. But the rest of the tournament was pretty good for sure. 18U boys bracket. The Muddy River Counselors getting the championship. They were the number 1 seed, so that's kind of expected. But I mean, look, it was close. It was tight with PCA. PCA gives them a run for their money. The first time the Counselors beat them by 11. Then the final game on the championship Saturday, 50-49. And you're talking about a very resilient PCA team. You put them down by 10, you cannot count them out because they'll come back there. And so Muddy River PCA being the championship, not too surprising. Had some interesting things. You were involved in this. Hattiesburg, Laurel, and Laurel able to get 3rd place. But you're talking about Hattiesburg, Laurel. That's a good battle. That's a good rivalry too. I mean, not very far away from each other. Yeah, for sure. So just kind of talk about your perspective on that 18U boys bracket.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expected Muddy River to do. I mean, they obviously did good the entire season. Y'all went undefeated the entire season, correct?
Yeah. For the for the conference, yes.
Yes.
PCA actually did beat the Counselors in the end of the district tournament, but
right.
When in terms of conference in the tournament, yes.
Right. So I mean, Muddy River, they did get the win, but I think a lot of people were expecting the win to be maybe a couple more points. I mean, Tate Balks hit that 3 at the end to make it a 1-point game. I mean, if he would have got fouled, I know Muddy River's being very careful not to foul there, but if for whatever reason refs called a foul, I mean, he makes that free throw going into overtime. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, it's a really tight game. I feel like PCA really stepped in and dug deep that game, and they really made it a very interesting championship game for the varsity boys. And Muddy River, they're just doing what they do best, being athletic, making their shots. I mean, Muddy River, they play very well as a team. They're really close as a team. So Michael knows somebody's going to be there, and there's somebody there, and he gets the pass to him. So Muddy River coming out with the win. But yeah, like you said, and then there was us and Laurel. Laurel ended up beating us there. Us and Laurel, each game is so hype. I mean, you can watch Laurel a game before, and they won't be that hype, and then they come play us, and they're yelling and screaming, and it's just that rivalry. It's tough. And they ended up coming out there. Landon Hollingsworth, he's out there. He got like 24 points. He's a really good basketball player.
He had a great game.
Yeah, he did. I hit my shots. Keller hit his shots. I mean, It's not like we were missing a bunch of shots, and it's not like we weren't playing good as a team. It's just Laurel played better, and they came up, and they deserved that spot. They really worked hard for it. They really put in a lot of work all season. It was us and them battling a lot all season for the number 3 spot, and they ended up coming away with it, and they deserve it. So GG's there. But yeah, man, it's just a really interesting tournament. Tough games, good games, entertaining games all around from all teams, and really fun tournament this year.
Yeah, for sure. And that place was buzzing during that Hattiesburg Laurel game for sure. And definitely very, very interesting, because you say that it wasn't that the shots weren't falling, but maybe for your 3-point shooters like you and Keller Russell, but some shots to the basket did miss. I mean, because you guys have that size. You guys have that size advantage, but I mean, you're able to get in there, but like you're talking about balls popping around the rim and popping out.
Yeah, that is
true. I did the end of that game, the second half of it, and it was something else. I mean, the place was live for sure. And for the Counselors, what was very interesting going through this tournament is that one player really stepped up for him was Rydell Breakfield. I mean, nearly averaged 24 points in the 3 games of the tournament. I mean, he just really went off. And I mean, those things are tough for a team like PCA. You prepare for the Counselors, and it's tough to prepare for 4 players. So you get to where if you have Rydell Breakfield going off, it's just like they have to hope that doesn't happen. And so that he was able to do well there in that tournament for sure for the Counselors there. And so kind of we some things that we were talking about that were some surprises. In the 14U, PCA being second was not really a surprise, but at the same time, that being a number 6 seed, it was a bracket buster, as I said earlier. But really, it was Jackson having a tough time making that championship, and I know that was tough for them because they had been targeting that 14U division and making that championship the entire year. But they do have guys like Daniel Cornelius in their last 14U year. This definitely, and Titus Miller and Winston Harrington, those guys were really targeting this year. PCA was able to knock them off. Laurel finishing 3rd, Muddy River Counselors finishing 3rd in 18U girls, and Laurel and 18U boys. Those were definitely sort of surprises as well that we saw. right there. So Charlie, I'll just go ahead and put you on standby. I'll bring you back after we do this interview here with Holly
Alrighty.
Ensign, and so we'll talk. Yes, thank you very much, Charlie, and we'll
No
be
problem.
back. You'll be back with Charlie Cotton, and so bring on Holly Ensign, and she's the outgoing senior forward for the Laurel Lady Hawks, a team that finished 24-5 overall and 10-0 in conference and won all the tournament games by very big margins as well. Holly, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So through the last 3 seasons, you've been very steady for this team. I mean, even last year, you were able to play on as your teammates were, kind of getting injured there towards the end of the season. Just take us through your journey as a Lady Hawk.
Well, ever since last year was like the first time I ever started varsity. Before that, I was mostly JV, junior high. I didn't really play a lot of varsity, and I didn't really start playing a lot until after the seniors started getting injured. The starters, especially like Lillian Bond, got injured. She's a post player, and so I had to start for her. But even whenever everybody started getting hurt, like we didn't give up. We pulled girls up from younger teams. Like we had 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds pulling up to play varsity. And I mean, ever since last year, my game hasn't been the same. I've had to step up and play a lot more and be a better person for our team.
Absolutely. So a couple years ago, that I do remember you getting some time in there in the games, coming off that bench, and you've always been able to be good at knocking down those short corner shots and those high post shots. And I mean, you and Mariah Pierce, it's kind of interesting because you watch the games and you would think that, okay, this team's bigger, so they're going to dominate. Well, I mean, if all the girls could shoot 15 footers as well as y'all could, I mean, you're talking about you could make these games more competitive, but I mean, you guys shoot well as well. So, okay, I know the core of this team has played together since junior high. Just take us through your development as a basketball player and kind of the building of the chemistry that y'all three particular seniors have.
Well, I started in 7th grade when I was 12 years old, and I really was not athletic at all. I started because my sister started, and it's just something I had to do because of her.
Mm.
And once I got to like 9th grade, I was like, I actually really like this, and I want to get better. So my dad and my brother taught me how to shoot, and so I started shooting and getting better at it. And then once I started 9th grade, I started junior high and JV. And once I got into that, Mariah moved up. She started varsity like 9th grade. And so I had
Yeah.
to step and play because I was like the tallest one on the team since she moved up. And so I had to step up and be the biggest post player out there. And I mean, we've worked so hard together. Me, Mariah, Olivia, we've played from the beginning together. And I mean, without them two, I don't know if I would be who I am today without them.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned that you learned shooting from your dad and Silas. Definitely not bad sources to learn shooting from, for sure. Silas could Silas could definitely shoot the ball as well. So last year, I know that was a tough year for y'all as a team. You expected to be winning again. You won it in 2022, won the championship last year, undefeated in conference, cruising through the season. Then, one after another, your players, your seniors get hurt, and then Olivia Spradley gets hurt. She plays through it. Mariah Pierce gets hurt. She's out for the end of the tournament. You had people that were banged up playing through it, but then you guys took the loss to a very good PCA team, so it's kind of a mixture of the two. You guys getting hurt and then them being a good team. What was the mentality entering this season? Because everybody who came back in this season came back with some vigor. Just talk about that mentality heading into the season.
I mean, losing last year, it really hit hard. Since I'd been playing junior high and JV and all through my career, we had won every championship.
Yeah.
And like we lost, and I was kind of like, okay, what do we do now? Well, all those girls that were young, they stepped up, they played so well. And I think that boosted everybody's confidence, helped everybody get ready for this season because they got to play in a more fast-paced, more intense game. Over the off season, we worked so hard. We practiced together. We worked on all kinds of plays, and I mean, it helped us develop better chemistry together playing with the girls that were going to be moving up this year.
For sure. And so the depth of this year's team was phenomenal, because just noticed, the last game that you guys played, one of your last conference games was against the Muddy River Counselors, and it's kind of like, you look, Mariah Pierce isn't playing, you think, okay, this might be a little bit, one of their top players aren't playing. I mean, look, still a 40-point game. I mean, and I think you put in a bunch of the points, if not, like, you're in the teens or the 20s or whatever. Just kind of talk about the depth of the team, because then once you bring out y'all starting guards, you just bring in younger guards that are real good as well. Just kind of talk about that depth. I mean, how does that even happen out there in Laurel, to have all those good players that y'all have?
I mean, it kind of helps to have a lot of athletic girls that
Yeah.
lots of sports, and they're always just practicing, and they're fit and they're ready to go, and they love the sport. That's the main thing. You have to love it to be able
Yeah.
to practice it, play it, do it well. And I mean, if somebody's out sick, somebody can't come, there's other girls that can just come in and play just the same exactly like the next person. I mean, we have so many good girls, and it's amazing to me how we all can just come together and work together no matter who's in the game. I mean, and we have Coach Sean to thank for that, for helping us practice together and for everything.
Absolutely. Holly, Ensign, thank you for joining us, for sure.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so we'll go into the last segment of the final show. We're going to bring back on Charlie Cotton and kind of talk about what we know about next year. Now, to preface everything that we're about to say here, you never know what's going to happen, because, I mean, last year I would have thought that the Laurel Nighthawks, I thought that the Laurel Nighthawks were going to be the premier team, maybe even the favorites going into this year, or this past year, just because of all the players that they had last year. I mean, they had a bunch of players, and then, you're talking about Kai Welch, Caleb Blankenship, and Braden Dry leaving, and Cooper Goodwin leaving as well. So, and you're talking about, that's a lot of guys leaving your team. But then Landon Hollingsworth joins your team, and then your team starts to gel. And then in the end of the year, they did better than they were expected right prior to the season. So they did really well in the season. But before the season, you thought that they would be loaded with a lot more players, particularly big players. And Brock Anderson's improvement was crazy as well as Ethan Beach's. But you thought that they might have some more guys there. So very interesting to kind of talk about that. But so if you take the 18U boys division, you're looking at the guys on the counselors. You're losing guys like Rydell Brakefield and William Leach. Those are two of your starters there that you have there. You're supposed to have the players that, are coming back there. So they should be good, but you never know. A team I will say that looks like they'll be real good is definitely Laurel, because they're not supposed to lose any seniors. Teams like Laurel and Meridian and Jackson, all three of those teams, you're not really losing anybody to graduation. So should be interesting. I know you guys are losing a couple guys to graduation, so y'all are going to have to kind of revamp a little bit. But your team made the 16U championship. So what's your outlook on that?
Like for the entire league, or just like for us?
Yeah.
Entire league?
For y'all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're losing Michael and Braden, and Case and Tyler. I mean, we're losing some guys. But I know what we're going to be doing over the offseason. Especially me and Kelly, we're going to be putting in a lot of work. And I know my other guys are going to be doing a lot of work too. I think it's going to look different, because I know a lot of our offense ran through Michael and Braden a lot this year. We really wanted to put a lot of weight on them as our two big post players, because over the past few years, we haven't really had two big post players that we can really dedicate that to. And this year we had that, so we wanted to take advantage of it. So I think it's going to change a lot. We're going to have probably, a lot more guards, but, we might get some new players. And again, it's so far out. Like, this is crazy to be predicting. But I mean,
absolutely.
It's going to look different, but I know it's going to be good. We're going to make it. We're going to we're going to work with whatever we got.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the thing too: is you never know who will walk through the door. That's the thing about homeschool basketball too: is you never know who moves into town or what's going on for sure. But yes, this is our last show. We do plan on doing the All-Star game. So the All-Star game is set for February 16th. The all-conference players were announced. And so these are the all-conference players. You also have alternates that are added to the list in order to make the full all-star team. But for the boys, you got Caleb Sanders, Michael Williams, Michael Barnes of the Forerunners. You got Caleb Sanders, Michael Williams, of course, of the Counselors, Tate Boggs of the PCA Paladins, Luke Sanders of the Muddy River Counselors, Rydell Breakfield of the Counselors, Brock Anderson of the Laurel Nighthawks, Braden Dry of the Hattiesburg Forerunners, Ethan Beach of the Laurel Nighthawks, and Caden Commenge of the PCA Paladins. That's for the boys. And then for the girls, you got Mariah Pierce of the Lady Hawks, Holly Ensign of the Lady Hawks, Salome Borelli of the PCA Paladins, Olivia Spradley of the Lady Hawks, and Lane Cameron of the PCA Paladins, Lalato Johnson of the Muddy River Counselors, Ella Archie of the Meridian Flyers, Sarah Sherman of the Meridian Flyers, and Maddie Gigi and Catherine Gigi of the Hattiesburg Forerunners. So that makes out the all-star teams that will be playing on February 16th. So coverage should begin around the 5 o'clock time. I think some details are being released, in the coming weeks. But we will be bringing that to you right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Please be sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button right now to be able to see all that we're doing. Also, another thing that we've got coming up doesn't concern the MSAHA, but it does concern the network. We'll be covering Tougaloo College basketball. So tomorrow night, Tougaloo will be taking on Philander Smith, the Panthers. They're out of Arkansas, so that'll be live coverage starting at 5 p.m. But Charlie, we've appreciated you being a TSJW Network contributor all season long, and appreciate the consistency for sure with the articles and everything. But yeah, looking forward to hopefully next year we'll still be doing our thing.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. It's been a cool experience, to come on here and to grow on these shows, and it's been fun, man. I appreciate you giving people like me and other people in the conference this opportunity, man. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. We always glad for guys, students, and athletes to be interested in doing this kind of stuff with me, because not everybody is.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So definitely appreciate you, Charlie, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been fun.
Awesome. And so that'll wrap up the last MSAHA Basketball Weekly show of the 2023-24 season. I'm Trellis Williams. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly show on the TSJW Network. We out.